All right, here we go. Welcome back, everyone. Tom Tabor here, Tabor Football Podcast. Bringing back Marcus Long, so that means, we're going to be talking 49er football today. How's it going, Marcus?
Doing well, Tom. Hope all is well. Hope the start of summer treated you well, and ready to talk more Niners, man. Always bang bang Niner gang. So prepare to be sick of us if you're not
Yep,
Niners fan.
absolutely. So today is going to be our first episode in a little segment we're starting. We're going to be trying to decipher which 49er defense is the best defense that they've ever assembled. So today we're actually going to compare the 2011 squad and the 2022 squad. So this most recent defense. So now people are probably going to ask, oh, why not the 2012 squad? Because that's the team that people remember because obviously they went to the Super Bowl. Well, actually, the 2011 team statistically was better on defense than the overall factor of, talking about carrying a team. That 2011 defense definitely carried that team because 2012, the offense gets some more weapons.
Yeah. So, hey, you're ready to jump in, man.
Oh yeah. So yeah, we'll start with the 2011 defense. We'll do a brief overview of that and how that season went. So, Marcus, 2011. We already talked about some records. Most consecutive games without allowing a rushing touchdown.
Yeah.
So 15 consecutive games. And then they had this crazy, what was it, a 2-year, 3-year streak, 2-year streak. They went 36 straight games without allowing a 100-yard rusher. So kudos to that front seven.
Shout out to the front seven. Shout out as we talk about the 2011 defense. Definitely have to give a lot of love to Vic Fangio.
Mm-hmm.
Vic Fangio, the D coordinator for the team. Then so to stop, no 100-yard rushers for 3 years, man. Hey, unheard
Well, it
of.
was also Greg Minusky, a little bit of Greg Minusky too.
Look,
But
because was Fangio gone after?
that was Fangio's first year, was the 2011 year. So for the 100-yard rusher, that started with Minusky.
Minusky and then went to Fangio.
Yeah, but if you look at the personnel was very similar in that front seven.
Yeah.
Going from Minusky to Fangio, really the biggest differences were definitely in the secondary. But yeah, so also, finished second in the NFL with only allowing 14.3 points per game. They led the league in takeaways and actually set a record for turnover differential plus 28. So that's also kudos to the offense. They did not turn the ball over that much. Only 10 turnovers for the offense that whole season. But yeah, the defense had 38 turnovers and 23 of which were interceptions.
And if I recall, the offense, now look, the offense did what they could do. But shout out to Dave Akers.
Yes, he broke the single season field goal record.
Whole lot of Dave Akers when it came down to the 25 and 20 opponent 25-yard line, man. So
yeah, seriously. And Marcus, if you remember a lot of those games, like I said, the defense basically carried the team. We're looking at like low scores, like we're looking at 19-17 or 17-14. A lot of games coming down to the wire and the defense having to finish clutch. How many times did Justin Smith like single-handedly win a game that year? Talk about the Philly game where he knocked down he forced the fumble.
Yeah.
And then the 4th and 2 against the Giants in the regular season where he knocked it down. He batted down Eli Manning's pass.
As well as, taking on a lot of double teams to free up Alden Smith.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, man. It wasn't like this year. I'm sorry, the 2022 team when they had a better offense that gave them more points. It was a lot of, like you said, 1911 game.
Some odd scores. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah, definitely shout out to them, man. And also, like I said, kudos to the offense as well. I know we're talking defense, but I think I want to say Alex Smith only had maybe 5 interceptions.
It really wasn't that many at all. Absolutely, yeah.
For the year.
Mm-hmm.
So to have your offense, take care of the ball,
and play field position.
Well. Yeah, and great play field position. Yeah, says a lot, man, about the team and the defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, let's go over the personnel real quick. You already talked about Alden and Justin Smith. So
Yep.
with Vic Fangio's defense, you're running a 3-4. So it's obviously different from the defense that D'Amico Ryans ran this past year. D'Amico runs a 4-man front.
Yeah, 4-3.
So starting with the D line, you got Justin Smith, who arguably one of the best interior D linemen to ever play the game. Isaac Sopoaga playing at nose, and then Ray McDonald, who was definitely an underrated piece to that 49er defense back in the day.
And was it after this season or the next season that Ray McDonald went to the Broncos?
So McDonald's career, it actually ended after 2014. That was the year where pretty much everyone was retiring. So he ran into some legal issues. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
And basically, no one picked him up after that. 2014 was his last full season. So he was actually a career 49er.
Yeah. But to that point, for the D line, outside of because Justin Smith had been there since 2008, 2009,
yep. 2008.
When Justin Smith came to the Niners, he was more of a sack specialist. He was definitely a better pass rusher. His role now was more so like I said, eating blocks, but also he still got to the quarterback. So our front, our D line, like you said, didn't have, I guess, your prototypical big name on the D line. However, like I said, the way they stopped the run, man, and freed up pass rush for our linebackers, man, was definitely instrumental for the defense. For the team.
Absolutely. Yeah, Justin Smith was probably that only big name because Sopoaga, Ray McDonald, guys that were typically underrated, not given really the credit that they deserve. Now, moving on from them, going through the rest of the front seven. So you have these two stand-up, these two outside linebackers, Aldon Smith and Ahmad Brooks. Aldon Smith's rookie season was 2011. He had 14 sacks. Ahmad Brooks had 7. And I forgot to mention Justin Smith also had 7 sacks, and Ray McDonald had 5. That's a lot of productivity from that group.
What's that, 33 sacks, roughly? If that's
just between them. Because they ended up finishing, I believe I have it down here. I think they had 42 sacks to finish out that season. And to put that in perspective, this past defense had 44, and most of which was contributed by one player, of course, Nick Bosa. This was pretty much spread out evenly across the board.
As well as this 22 team had an extra game.
Yes. So keep that in mind.
So keep that in mind with extra game and whatnot. So it's just like I said, the Ahmad Brooks and Aldon Smith. I think Ahmad Brooks doesn't get, his proper due as he should as being a Niner. I think a lot of people think of him as more of a Bengal, but I think he had one of his prime years as a Niner.
Oh no, absolutely. He was. He had his Pro Bowl appearances as a 49er.
Yeah.
And with Aldon Smith, now a lot of people forget Aldon Smith was drafted before J.J. Watt. Now, here's the thing. Those first couple years, 2011 and then especially 2012, when Aldon Smith almost broke Michael Strahan's sack record, he was well ahead of J.J. Watt in terms of the actual sack totals. If Aldon could have stayed out of trouble, we're looking back at this draft class and being like, you have 2 Hall of Famers in Aldon Smith and J.J. Watt.
I think I talked about the last podcast. I remember when Balky drafted Aldon Smith. I remember looking who the heck is this? Because I think he got him was he 7th overall?
7th overall, yep.
7th overall. And I was like, we got who? And I remember seeing JJ, play in college for Wisconsin. Yep.
Big Ten.
I was like, yeah. I'm like, we can get JJ, him, Justin Smith, D-line be, fortified. But hey, again, this is why I do the profession I do and don't scout, because I was clearly wrong about
at the time. This was just a pivotal draft pick for the 49ers organization. Yeah. We're talking about now. This is a comeback or a turnaround, rather. It's probably a better word. You're going from 6-10 to 13-3, and Aldon Smith is definitely a key piece to that puzzle.
I think, if I recall, this is one of the top 10 team turnarounds. Going from I don't want to say words, but going from 6-10 to 13-3 in a year.
Yep. The NFC championship. Yeah.
NFC Championship. Also, like, they attribute to hiring Harbaugh as well. And like I said, so yeah, it was. But I remember getting Alden Smith. It was like, oh yeah, we got him. I was like, who's this guy? And then as the sacks came, I was like, yep, I'm wrong. So I'm thinking in my mind, we have Charles Haley all over again.
Yep.
And then, like you
Great
said,
comparison.
So yeah.
And then Alden Smith, he went off in that Monday night game against Pittsburgh. And that was the defending AFC champion Pittsburgh Steelers.
Was it 4 sacks?
I think it was 5. It was closer to 5 in that one game. Him and Justin Smith were all over Ben Roethlisberger. Granted, Roethlisberger had that injured ankle that game, but you're talking about that was one of the best offenses in the NFL at that point in time. You got Ben Roethlisberger, Hines Ward, Mike Wallace, Antonio Brown, Emmanuel Sanders. Niners held them to 3 points in that game.
And then I think the Steelers ended up cheating, trying to turn the lights off. That's the lights out game, right? That's the game
that was the lights out game, but like I think one of those there was some footage. I think a transformer actually blew.
Yeah, I think Mike Tomlin had some people go and take the stadium because. But no, I do remember like that game. It was like low scoring, like up to halftime, and then kind of like after
the Niners came away with it, like 20-3. It was pretty much over by the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Yep. And then we go into arguably the best inside linebacker tandem, one of the best in the NFL history with Patrick Willis, Navarro Bowman. Patrick Willis, 7-time Pro Bowler in his first 7 seasons, 2-time All-Pro. Navarro Bowman, that was his first Pro Bowl. He also was named All-Pro a couple times in his career. Phenomenal group of inside linebackers. You don't get much better than Bowman and Willis.
And then, like I said, find Bowman in I think it was a 3rd round pick, maybe 4th round pick.
3rd round out of Penn State in 2010.
Well, the scout Bowman out of college, man, and pairing with, in my eyes, a Hall of Famer, and Patrick Willis. The linebacking core, I didn't see any weakness in that 2011 season. I think when we compare it to 2022, I'll discuss kind of like some similarities and differences in the two. But yeah, those 4 linebackers, man, I would argue and say we probably had the best linebacking core in the league that season.
Oh, without a doubt, hands down. And then moving on, I guess you can say probably the weaker part of the defense, but still pivotal in terms of turnovers. Because after looking at the stats, so they actually they finished 16th in passing defense. So that's why they were in yards allowed.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
In passing yards allowed. So that's why they were the number 3 overall defense, not quite the number 1. They without a doubt had the number 1 rushing defense. I mean, that's hands down. But that's the reason they were 3rd overall was because of their secondary. But still, their ability to turn the ball over. You had Carlos Rogers with 7 picks. Deshaun Goldson with 7 picks. And then you had, Dante Whitner playing opposite Deshaun Goldson. And then you had Terrell Brown and Chris Culliver, and just a lot of depth at that cornerback position.
And it's interesting that, to kind of compare, our defense now to 2011, that, we had Carlos Rogers, who was a premier cornerback during that time, got him from Cincinnati. Came over with 6 picks. I think this was his maybe first All-Pro year.
This was his first Pro Bowl, yep.
And first Pro Bowl. I thought he went Pro Bowl with the Bengals. But anyway.
Washington.
I'm sorry, Washington. I get the Bengals. I'm sorry. It was Washington.
No, you're good.
The Redskins. Sorry, the Commanders. They were
Yes.
They were that name.
But back then they were, when Carlos Rogers was there, they were
that team.
It was interesting with Rogers because he was a first round pick in 2007, and he didn't really, with Washington, he didn't quite live up to the hype, and then his breakout season, best year of his career, was 2011.
2011, like I said, six picks. So we thought, we had our one corner on one side that can take care of, on the zone. And also, kind of like now, we had our other corner who you could probably say got picked on some, in Terrell Brown and Chris Culliver. I think there was also 2. I think was Brown a rookie that year, or Culliver was a rookie that year.
Culliver was a rookie that year. Brown, I think, was in his 3rd or 4th year. I think we drafted him in 2008.
Okay. And to that point, they're gonna pick on the younger corners, and then having Dante Hittner and Deshaun Goldston there, man. I think Goldston they think of Goldsmith just kind of like a more finesse free safety. However, Golson thumped a few people.
Oh yeah,
in 2011 too. I think he forced a couple fumbles.
Look at that hit on Mike Williams, and then look at that hit in 2012 on early Doucette.
Yeah, so it was Deshaun. Deshaun was thumping a few people back then.
He was a hard hitter, but a ball hawk, because Deshaun had 7 picks, and he had that huge interception off of Drew Brees in the divisional round that year.
Yep. So, like I said, I agree with you, Tom, saying that maybe the only, I guess, opportunity or weak point of the defense is probably our second corner.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but hey, the secondary definitely. The pass rush, the front seven, sorry,
definitely helps a lot.
Made it easier for our secondary.
Absolutely. All right, so we went over the personnel. Now let's talk about some of the games, some of the offenses they had to go against that year. So with 2011, I think the best offense they saw all season was that Saints team in the divisional round. Now that Saints team, you had Drew Brees, you still had Reggie Bush, you had Pierre Thomas, you had Jimmy Graham, Devery Henderson, Marcus Colston, Robert Meacham, Darren Sproles, who was an absolute weapon that year.
And we can't forget that, with having a great offense, you had Sean Payton calling plays, man.
Mm-hmm.
And the play calling. This was, like I said, the Saints were definitely the Chiefs of their time, as you can say. But yeah, that Saints team was phenomenal.
Absolutely. But in that game, I mean, I know we ended up allowing 32 points, but the defense still had 5 takeaways. Well, technically 4, because I think the special teams had 1.
Yeah.
But defense still was able to force turnovers, and Drew Brees was under duress.
Yes.
The whole game. Justin Smith was a bully. I don't know if you ever seen that clip of Justin Smith bull rushing. I think it was Jamon Bushrod.
Yeah.
Pushed him right into Drew Brees, and then actually dragged Brees down by the horse collar. I'm surprised they didn't call that, but.
Well, it feels good having Liberties playing in your own home. Little hometown loving. So I think I remember that game that I think we was up by 14, like in the first half, or maybe about 11. I remember when the Saints came back in the second quarter, I was like, you can't give them possession, man, because with Brees, man, he was going to definitely tear us apart. He kind of did in the second half. So
he did. I will say that is the one game where the offense actually had to step up and save the team.
Yes. And I forgot who was our coordinator. Was it? No, G. Christ wasn't our offense coordinator.
He was the quarterback coach. It was Greg Roman.
And shout out to Greg Roman on his play calling during that game. I know we talk about defense, but offensively, I remember watching it, and when he called the bootleg for Alex Smith.
One of the best plays I've ever seen.
2 minutes ago?
Yep.
I thought the game was over, but then I was like, well, there's the Saints. So you never know. But yeah, so I remember him calling that bootleg, thinking it was over. And then, like I said, the call and the catch 3 in the stick, man. So
what was it? Burn into the post, I think, was the play call.
Yeah, burn into the post with
14 seconds.
18? Oh, yeah, 14 seconds left.
3rd and 3. I remember it like it was yesterday.
And it came up crying like T.O. I was like, yep, this is definitely
I almost came up crying like T.O. after seeing that.
like T.O. cried and catch 2, man.
Yep.
So, but no, but to your point, Tom, I think, or if I remember, man, the Saints are probably the best. The Saints and the Steelers probably the 2 best offenses we played that year.
Yep. Now, we didn't get to play the Packers that year, but the Packers offense, so they were coming off of their Super Bowl win. That was when they went 15-1 in the regular season. That Packer offense would have been scary, but we did kind of get to put that to the test in 2012, but unfortunately not in 2011. I'd say another solid offense was definitely that Giants offense. That was the year that Victor Cruz broke out. Obviously, we beat them in the regular season, but I will say, and you remember it probably, that NFC Championship, the defense could not have played any better than what they did. This is where, the defense cannot carry you all the way to the Super Bowl. This was a game that the defense absolutely carried us. I think Eli got sacked 5 times And
I remember watching America's game on the 2011 Giants.
I don't know why you would do that to yourself.
And they interviewed Michael Strahan, and they were going over the NFC Championship game. And I remember Strahan looking at Eli. He was like, "They're gonna kill Eli because he got sacked. I think he said 4 or 5 times."
Yep.
And he knew, he was like, "If this guy gets sacked again, we might have to go to not Lorenz. Yeah, either Jared Lorenz or Anthony.
It was David Carr actually.
It was David Carr?
It was David Carr. Yep.
Oh, Lorenz was when they went 07.
Yep.
But yeah, he was like, I think they're gonna kill this guy. But yeah, but no, the defense definitely held us down. Like the offense, they again, as we said earlier, the defense we had needed more from our offense. However, I think we relied too much on Dave Akers being automatic within, 40-yard field goal. We got too comfortable. So.
Yeah, I mean, you kick 44 field goals. You make 44 field goals in the regular season. That's definitely relying on your kicker a little too much.
Yeah.
And then, Marcus, one more offense I do want to call out from that season, the 2011 Lions. That was actually one of the better offenses the Niners had to go against that year. So that was when the Lions started out 5-0, ended up clinching a wild card berth. Played the Saints in the wild card round.
The Saints, okay, I remember that now.
Yep, but that was at that point in time when the Niners played the Lions. The Lions were undefeated, and their offense, was one of the top offenses in the league. That was one of Matt Stafford's really that was the year that really solidified who Matt Stafford truly was as a quarterback.
I forgot that. For some reason, I forgot Detroit made playoffs that year.
Yep.
Again, I remember they had Megatron because he was unguardable. But yeah, it was 10-6 that year, and we played them it was 5-0 and beat them.
Yeah,
beat them. It's gonna be 5. Okay.
Then that was another game where Justin Smith wreaked havoc.
So out of curiosity, Tom, as we talk about the 2011 defense, the defense was also always amazing that year. Do you think that we also had a little bit of help being that we had a 4th place schedule?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We had easier schedules. I'm looking at the teams we played, and I'm trying to remember the offense, the quarterbacks we played. And besides Stafford, Russ wasn't there yet in Seattle, right? It was still,
nope, that was Tavares Jackson.
Jackson. We lost to Tony Romo. No,
yep.
Yeah, we lost to Tony Romo.
Lost to Tony Romo. That was the game where he actually came back from a collapsed lung and ended up finishing out that game.
The Rams wasn't there yet. So I think the point I'm trying to make is I don't think we played any. We only played with maybe 3 or 4, maybe top 10 quarterbacks, and Big Ben,
Brees,
Eli Breeze.
And then Mike Vick too. Played Mike Vick that year.
Okay, I was thinking that was Kevin Cobb. So it was Vic.
It was Vic.
Okay, that was Vic. Or Nick Foles. That was Vic. Okay.
Yeah. But you're right. It definitely benefited the team, playing I think they finished 3rd in 2010. So playing a 3rd place schedule definitely helped out a bit.
Yeah.
But I mean, when it came time to show who they really were in the postseason, playing the way they did against the Saints, and then, of course, that defense playing their hearts out against the Giants, who ended up winning the Super Bowl that year.
Yeah, I don't know about like you said, man. I decided to watch that America's team for the Giants, and again, I still remember Kyle Williams, man. Kyle, if you're watching, we love you. And it took maybe 3 years after that, man, for us to forgive you, but it's all right.
I mean, you can't blame him. It was just it was a downpour. I mean, and the offense wasn't making any plays. Kyle was just trying to make a play. People forget he had a huge kickoff return in that game. Yeah, I think it only led to, of course, a David Akers field goal, but he had a huge kickoff return. People forget about that. So Kyle was just trying to make a play in overtime because he kept trading possessions in overtime. It was just a stalemate. And Kyle I think he saw an opening and he tried to take it, and it was just too slippery. Someone got a hand on it, and the ball just came out.
Yeah, so
tough sledding.
I guess as we wrap up or talking about 2011 defense, I do want to kind of talk about also the defensive coaches
Yeah.
that year. So D coordinator Vic Fangio, D line coach Jim Tomzula, linebackers coach Jim Levitt, secondary Ed Donatel.
One of the best.
Oh man, assistant secondary Greg Jackson. I know he wasn't. He's a coach assistant, but I can't pronounce his name. But he's the defense coordinator for the Panthers now. Ivero.
Oh.
So looking at this, the defense alone had 1, 2, 3, 4 head coaches just as defensive coaches. So in the NFL. So yeah.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And then, just wrapping up with the 2011 defense. So, we already talked about, carrying the team, clutching big moments. And then just want to talk about the big name factor. So we have, let me tell you, every single person on that starting defense that made it to at least one Pro Bowl in their career. You have 8 of them. All right. So you have Aldon Smith, Justin Smith, Ahmad Brooks, Patrick Willis, Navarro Bowman, Carlos Rogers, Deshaun Goldson, and Dante Whitner.
So 8 of your 11 positions is a Pro Bowl.
Ultimately made a Pro Bowl at least once in their careers. So just
as a Niner.
Yes, every single one of those was as a Niner, because for 2022, Tashawn Gibson's on that list, but his lone Pro Bowl appearance was when he was in Cleveland.
The Browns.
So now let's jump over to 2022. So just some stats. Ranked number 1 overall.
Yeah.
Ranked number 1 in points allowed, 16.3 per game. Now, if you remember, the 2011 squad only allowed 14.3 per game. Ranked number 1 overall in total yards per game. They had 30 takeaways, which they were number 2. To put it in perspective, the 11 squad had 38. So 8 more turnovers for the 2011 squad.
In one less game. Yeah.
Yep. One less game. That's right. And then 20 interceptions, 44 sacks, which was obviously heavily influenced by Nick Bosa. There wasn't as much of a spread as there was in 2011. 15 fourth down stops, and a lot of which were goal line stands too. I don't know if you remember, that was like the year of the goal line stand this past year.
Yeah.
Lots of goal line stands. Very, very stingy in the red zone. Probably the stingiest 49er defense in the red zone I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And then best offenses. So the best offenses they played, Dallas, Miami, the Chargers. I mean, I know
Justin Herbert.
They were inconsistent, but they were one of the better offenses. Obviously, the best offense being the Chiefs, Seattle, and then Philly.
I know this may be past, but would you put the Bucs there out of?
Yeah, so if it was 2021, I would have said the Bucs for sure. But their offense struggled mightily this past year. So I was honestly debating putting that on the list as a top offense that the Niners played this past year, but they really fell off from where they were in 2020 and 2021.
Yeah, that's true, because they didn't run the ball. Well, they didn't run the ball in 2021 either, but in 22, they really couldn't run the ball. The Bucs couldn't. You talked about the sacks, Tom. What and the philosophies, comparing the philosophies of the two defenses. So 2011, a 3-4. Whatnot, a lot more emphasis on your outside rush pass rush being get to the quarterback. Your linebackers get into it versus the 4-3, which you only rely on. Well, the 49ers were a 4-3 cover 3, and therefore your ends, your D line is to get to the QB. Do you think also the change of philosophy, and granted it was 11-year difference in the defenses led to less sacks this year versus in 2011?
Yep. So they did actually have 2 more sacks, but again, we alluded to that probably being because of the extra game.
Yeah, extra game, yeah.
But I mean, so typically your better pass rushers would I feel like you would get more production out of a pass rush from a 3-4 as opposed to a 4-3, because it definitely makes a difference having those 2 stand-up linebackers over there for sure. Because yeah, again, you're just relying on you're 4 against the 5 guys on the O line. I mean, it's basically one-on-one across the board, and someone has help.
Yeah.
So I see what you're saying. It definitely makes it tougher for sure.
And also, if I recall, the 2011 defense, they didn't substitute a lot of guys.
Not as much as the 2022 squad.
2022 team too. So
yeah. So basically, the 2022 defense heavily relied on rotating the D line. They wouldn't really rotate the secondary too much. Wouldn't really rotate the linebackers, but yes, just the D line.
Yeah.
So in 2011, it's literally just Isaac Sopoaga, Ray McDonald, and Justin Smith out there. Those guys would never take plays off.
Yeah.
Let me ask you if you remember who was the backup nose guard in 2011.
Is it Ricky Jean Francois?
There you go.
Francis?
Yeah, Francois. He pronounces it Francois. And then the 2 backup, I guess you want to call them DNs, but they're technically interior D linemen. DeMarcus Dobbs and Will Tukuwafu.
I wouldn't got that.
Yep.
I remember DeMarcus Dobbs on special teams, but I don't think I remember seeing him on defense. Yeah.
But the reason you can't remember them is because they were never on the field. Justin Smith and Ray McDonald, those guys never subbed. They were in there the whole time.
And I think Francois only came in like on goal line, like is how I remember.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Sopoaga barely got out of there himself.
Yeah.
But then, 2022, it's all a rotation. So let's go through the personnel. So starting with the D line, so your starting D line, obviously, Nick Bosa. I mean, who's the comparison to Nick Bosa on the 2011 squad? Yeah, unfortunately, it's with the systems being so different, it is hard to compare.
Yeah.
Do I say he's like a Justin Smith? Do I say he's like an Alden Smith?
I was the question is he Alden if Alden puts his hand to the ground?
Hand down.
His hand down, yeah. And that's probably the only. I guess it's Alden because
he's built more like Alden.
I think other offenses would game plan for Nick like others did for Alden Smith. So yeah, I mean it would be Alden.
Absolutely, I would definitely have to say so. Yeah, not quite the build of Justin Smith. I mean, oh my God, Justin Smith was just a monster.
Cowboy was country strong, man. That's different. Yeah, Cowboy was country, but Nick is country strong. Well, Nick is strong too, man. So,
he's very strong, deceptively strong. And then Eric Armstead. Obviously Armstead, wasn't healthy for a big portion of the season. Mm-hmm. And then Javon Kinlaw, I guess you can technically say, is the other starting interior D lineman from this past year, but he only played in the postseason. So that spot was mostly like Kevin Givens or Hassan Ridgeway.
Yeah, I'll say Kerry Hyder.
Yeah, Kerry Hyder too, and then even Charles Omenihu.
Yeah.
And then the other bookend, Samson Ebukam.
Yeah. I think with the D line for 2022, the edge I give to them is that I think compared to 2011, they had more versatility. As we talked about, Justin Smith wasn't asked to do what Nick Bosa does. Yep. However, I think offensives, this last season had to at least game plan a lot more for Armstead, Omenihu, Ebukam. So I think this D line, I won't say is like this year was better, but they were a little bit more versatile versus 2011. Now, granted, in 2011 you had more teams like run the ball more versus passing more, and last season. But I think this year is a little bit more versatile. This year's defensive linemen are a lot more versatile.
Yeah, you talking about the versatility. So Kerry Hyder was a guy that could play inside and out. Charles Omenihu was a guy that played inside and out. Drake Jackson was a guy that played inside and out. So, yeah, I mean, basically everyone on the D line was able to do both interior and, play on the edge as well. Yeah, you talk about that versatility because 2011, versatility wasn't quite there. Justin Smith's not a linebacker. He's not gonna kick out and do what Alden Smith's doing. And then maybe Justin Smith can move. Yeah, Justin Smith and Ray McDonald can obviously switch with Isaac Sopoaga. You can probably move them to the nose. But yeah, I mean, other than that, there's not much versatility there, as you alluded
to. Yeah.
All right. So going into our 3 linebackers now. So Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, and Azeez Al-Shire.
So this is tough for me, Tom. I was in my mind when we discussed about the topic. I was thinking, both defenses, the strength were the linebackers.
Mm-hmm.
In 11, of course, different personnel, but as 3-4 and 11 and 4-3 in 2022. And I was sitting there thinking, like, what did both linebacking cores do best? I would say with 2022. I think the 2022 linebackers covered a little bit better.
I would have to agree.
2011. Mm-hmm. However, I think a lot of people kind of sleep on how many picks that
Patrick Willis had,
and like even Bowman had,
mm-hmm.
Because they would go in coverage too from time to time. So it wasn't that the 2011 linebackers couldn't cover; they wasn't asked to as much as the 2022 linebackers. But I think these 2011 linebackers they hit you a little. I think you feel a lot more 2011 linebackers versus 2022 linebackers.
Actually, so that reminds me. Let's just address that real quick. So if we're looking at these defenses and we're just talking about fear factor alone, which defense are you more scared to play against? I got to say it has to be the 2011 team. They asserted their dominance with those hard hits. I mean, you talk about Deshaun Goldson knocking out Mike Williams, and then the next year knocking out Early Doucette. Dante Whitner knocking out Pierre Thomas in the playoffs. Patrick Willis essentially knocking out Ricky Williams in the regular season.
Was that the 2011 team that this is going to sound terrible? They played the Jets.
That was 08. That was 08. Brad Smith getting.
Okay.
Yep. But hey, that was Patrick Willis that did that. That was Patrick Willis that laid the boom.
My apologies, but I always remember that hit. I was like, I think Brad Smith may have torn something.
I thought he died. First looking at that, I was like, oh my God, there's no coming back from that. That looks devastating.
So to play devil's advocate though, Tom, like you just stated, this 2022 defense did stop, 15 fourth down stops.
15 fourth downs, several on the goal line.
Also, they do have the disadvantage of having a softer roughing the passer.
Yes, now very true.
As well as roughing the passer and unnecessary roughness. Oh man, who am I more scared to get hit by? All of them, but however, I might ride with 2022.
Okay.
Only because I'm thinking Fred Warner. Hold on, now I got to think that.
Fred Warner is a heat-seeking missile.
He's a heat-seeking missile, but also, Hufanga. I know we haven't talked about secondary yet, but it's his second year. But I remember, he'll slide up and play in the box. I'm gonna give a slight, like a small edge to 2022.
Yeah, well, I mean, you got to be worried about Bosa, Fred Warner, and then like you said, Talanoa Hufanga. I mean, that guy will knock you out.
And even I know it's a 2022. Even last year's defense in 2021, when Greenlaw hit Jacob, was it Jacob Hollister or
that was 2019? Yeah, Jacob Hollister. That goal 19? Line stand. Yep, that was 19. The goal line stand against Seattle to basically clinch the NFC West.
Jesus, years is off. But even then, I'm like, oh, he's gonna make it. But yeah, the strength that Greenlaw had, man, to stop him then. So I'm gonna give a slight edge to 2022. Well, I'm more for love.
Then also, I'd be scared of Jimmy Ward. Jimmy Ward, he could lay down the boom. I don't know if you remember the hit he had on Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl.
So that Super Bowl, I've kind of erased it after.
It would understandably so.
After like 9 minutes in the fourth quarter, I don't remember anything about that. Well,
it's probably for the best. But yeah, let's jump into the secondary. So we were already talking about Jimmy Ward, Talanoa Hufanga. You also had Tashawn Gibson, who actually led the team in interceptions with 5. And then, you got your corners. So obviously we started out the year with Emmanuel Mosley. Unfortunately, he went down against the Panthers. Charvarius Ward, then Demo stepped up. Yeah. Jimmy Ward, obviously, he's mostly known for playing safety, but, Jimmy ended up playing in the slot.
If I recall, who was originally supposed to be the starting free safety? It wasn't supposed to be Gibson the whole time, right?
It was supposed to be Jimmy Ward.
Jimmy Ward got hurt. Moved to slot because Jaworski, they let him go in free agency.
He went to Philly.
Yeah. Like I said, I think as we talked about in the past podcast, this year I think every Niner fan was fearful of or was scared of our secondary, given they had Josh Norman last year.
Dante Johnson.
I'm about to say the 15th time getting Dante Johnson.
Ambry Thomas.
Ambry Thomas. So I think we were fearful that if we had a weak point on the defense, is going to be our secondary.
Yep.
But I think this year the secondary, to see the leap Hufanga had, it was, I think, a jolt to the entire secondary because you can tell I think with Jimmy Ward being gone, he's probably the leader of the secondary now.
Yep. So I do have to say, without a doubt, this 49ers secondary, I do believe was better than the 2011 secondary in terms of, because again, like we said, passing yards allowed in 2011, they finished 16th.
Okay.
So they would give up a ton of passing yards. But 2022, they were like first in passing yards allowed. So definitely dominated there. But now here's the thing. Playing against the run. Now, our kryptonite was definitely teams that could run the ball really well. Like, look what happened against Atlanta.
Yeah.
That's probably, like, they ran all over us.
All three of their running backs.
Even Marcus Mariota ran all over us.
Yeah.
So in terms of like rushing defense, this team doesn't even compare to how solid the rush defense was in 2011.
Yeah, like you said in the beginning of the podcast, the 2011 team didn't allow a 100-yard rusher for 3 years?
Yeah.
And also 2011 only had 3 rushing touchdowns against them.
Something along those lines.
It
wasn't until the second to last game of the regular season where they finally allowed their first rushing touchdown. So
you go 14, 15 games without, allowing a rushing touchdown. So yeah, the rushing defense, man, was phenomenal in 11. But like you said with 22, I think 22 secondary, like you said, played the pass a lot better. Now, granted, they had, it's easy when you have Nick Bosa.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
So yeah.
All right. So now let's talk about did this 2022 defense, did they carry the team? I have to say no. So yes, the offense got off to a very slow start, but once you insert Brock Purdy, they're scoring 30 points every week, Marcus.
Yeah.
With Brock Purdy at quarterback.
Yeah.
So I got to say this defense didn't carry them as much as they had to carry the team in 2011.
Well, Brock and also the trade for CMC was also the catalyst for points. I think there's a few games I remember that the defense had to carry us a little bit. It was the
Saints game.
The Saints game, which I was like, the Saints had Andy Dalton at quarterback, so I'm thinking, it should be
a cakewalk.
It should be a 27-7 game.
Yep.
It was a struggle. I remember watching, like, why are we struggling against Andy Dalton? And I think it took like a 4th down stop in the 3rd or 4th quarter to kind of break it
at the goal line.
To break it open. So I think at times the defense doesn't carry as much as, like you said, 2011. But I think at times, our defense laid their will.
Yes.
On teams and didn't have to worry about the offense compared to 2011.
Absolutely. And I got to say, in the postseason, they definitely carried the team against Dallas.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Those two INTs off of Dak, and then just their ability to get off the field on 3rd down in that game. That helped because the offense struggled mightily against Dallas. Granted, Dallas's defense was top tier.
Yes. It wasn't like you said, a cakewalk type defense that was playing against Dallas. And even this is going to be terrible to say. In this year's NFC Championship game,
they played their asses off in the NFC Championship game.
When we were down to me and you being a quarterback at one point, my warped mind was thinking, hey, the defense can get three interceptions or some forced fumbles, and we're back in this, which is sad for me to think, but also a testament of how great our defense was this year and how great they were. So
Absolutely. And then talk about being clutch in big moments. So with 2011, we talked about, against the Saints, forcing all those turnovers, and then the performance they had against the Giants in the NFC Championship, sacking Eli 5 times. That was one of the Giants' worst offensive performances all season, and that was a top-tier offense in the league that year.
Yep.
So we talk about clutch moments for 2022. So obviously Dallas defense was clutch in that game.
Yep.
Saints, not really a big moment, but they were clutch. Denver, they kind of carried the team against Denver, but obviously Denver squeaked by.
One game that might be overlooked because of the score is the Dolphin game.
Yeah.
Because for a while, the Dolphins, offense was, kicking and putting into our defense, and then it took the forced fumble by, was it Nick or who against?
I know Dre Greenlaw scooped it up.
It was.
Oh, are you talking about the wild card game against
Seattle? No. It was no. It was maybe it was Greenlaw, but it took that to kind of break the game open against the Dolphins, because the Dolphins were actually hanging with the Niners this year.
You're right. It was Bosa that forced the fumble, and then Greenlaw had the scoop and score.
Scoop it up, yeah. So yep. I mean, that was also another. I know it led to kind of a higher score, but that was kind of a clutch moment for them as well.
Yeah, no, it definitely was. So now, we talked about the big name factor with the 2011 squad. So big name factor. So looking at, anyone on this roster who has made a Pro Bowl in 2022. So we had 8 from 2011. With the 2022 roster, you only had, 4 guys that made it to Pro Bowls. So Bosa, Fred Warner, Talanoa Hufanga, and Tashawn Gibson, who wasn't even a 49er when he made it to the Pro Bowl. And actually, you know what? Now I'm trying to remember, because maybe I forgot someone. Jimmy Ward. There's no way Jimmy Ward didn't make it to a Pro Bowl, right?
I don't think Jimmy made it this year.
He didn't make it this past year, but I'm trying to think of 2019. Let's see. Let me just double check real quick.
I got you.
I want to fact check myself real quick.
Ward. No, Jimmy's not made a Pro Bowl.
He has not made a Pro Bowl. So I was right. So four Pro Bowlers on that roster, as opposed to 4 Pro Bowlers on that defense, as opposed to 8.
Did Kwaski?
Kwaski didn't make one. No.
Huh. But no, to your point, but also definitely got to put in a factor. I guess I hate the Pro Bowl voting because it's so skewed.
It's definitely different now than it was in 2011.
Yeah, I look at All Pro a lot, because All Pro kind of gives you a better kind of understanding of the players. Mm-hmm. But the Pro Bowl, and then granted, in 11, outside of us, I think you said earlier, the Broncos had a pretty stout defense.
The Broncos that defense carried them. I mean, like you saw the numbers Tim Tebow was putting up in the first 3 quarters. That Denver defense was unbelievable. And I'm pretty sure. So yeah, you had 2 teams that finished ahead of the Niners in overall defense in 2011. I think Denver was one of them, and we were struggling to figure out who the other one was.
Was it the Steelers?
That's what I'm trying to figure out, because I'm trying to think of. See who it. I can tell you the Patriots had the worst defense that year.
Really?
They did. Their defense was 32nd overall.
Huh.
I think it was like one of the first times ever a team that had the worst defense in the NFL made it to the Super Bowl. But for number 1, it could have been Baltimore, because Baltimore's defense
that definitely doesn't. That definitely doesn't. Yeah, because Baltimore had
Ray Lewis, Terrell Suggs, Nada,
and
Ed Reed,
all pros.
Mm-hmm.
So it could have been Baltimore. But no, but to your point, like I said, in 2011, man, like look at who other was on Pro Bowl. So, yeah.
Yeah. So to wrap things up, Marcus, because we gotta move on with so who's gonna move on from this round to the next segment. So 2011 versus 2022. Let me give you my take, and let's see if we can come to an agreement here. So I'm gonna say the 2011 squad is better than the 2022 squad, and the reasoning is, go to big names,
Okay.
8 Pro Bowlers, 8 guys whose names you recognize, 8 guys who put fear into the opponent's hearts. Now, more takeaways. So that's a statistic. Stands, 8 more takeaways in less games.
Okay.
They play 1 less game. So 8 takeaways, 8 more takeaways. And then points per game. They allowed 14.3 as opposed to, I think it's 16.3. Yeah, 16.3
it's like 16.3
for
or
2022. Now, carrying the team. Now, we know the 49ers offense struggled mightily in 2011. This defense carried the team to a 13-3 record in an NFC championship and so close to a Super Bowl appearance, taking the Super Bowl champion New York Giants into overtime in the NFC championship. And then, talk about clutching big moments. They were clutch against the Saints in the amount of turnovers they were able to force. They were clutch against the Giants, making Eli Manning's night just hell. And that is my reasoning for having the 2011 defense surpassing the 2022 defense in this round.
I know, I guess for a bit of hype, I should say 2022 defense, right? However, I will agree with the 2011 defense moving forward versus 2022. The major factor was that the lack, like you said, carrying the team, the lack of offense of the 2011 team. Well, let me say lack of, that's harsh.
Mm-hmm.
Relying more on the kicking game and special teams in 2011.
Relying too much on it.
Like David Akers made 44 field goals. That's almost 145, 42 points. Compared to, the team last year. And like the point differential, points for versus points against in 2011, they scored 380 against 229 points against, versus in 2022, points for was 450 for, and points against 277. So again,
and keep in mind the 1 extra game too.
The 1 extra game.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, I'm going with 2011.
Yeah. No, there you have it. There you have it. It is a very tough decision. I forgot to add the emotional element too. So there is an emotional element for me choosing 2011. So, obviously growing up as a 49er fan, not the best time, especially me being in elementary school, through like 2000 through like 2009. Those were not fun years. And so the 2011 team was really like the first team that did really well. Like in my, like a team that I can remember, because I don't remember the 2001 team. I don't remember the 2002 team that went to the postseason. So the 2011 team was like my first. That's my sweetheart. When I think of the 49ers, I'm like, the 2011 team to this day is always my favorite.
That's actually a good factor, because prior to the 2011 defensive team, the last time they made the playoffs was 02.
02.
Mm-hmm. So again, that's a good 9. That's almost a decade stretch where it's a lot of pain and misery. So
didn't even have a winning record.
They have a winning,
Well,
they went 8-8 one year. That
2009.
Yeah,
that was the first time we didn't have a losing record. So.
I think I celebrated that.
Yep, I was happy with it.
But no, to your point though, Tom, yes, to have a winning record that goes to the playoffs, to advance in the playoffs, and kind of in typical Niner fashion, losing an NFC Championship game, it does bring back kind of good memories. That hey, that maybe we're back. We got a coach now. We have an amazing defense. So yeah, I can see the emotional factor with 2011.
Mm-hmm.
Before we move on, we had 2011 defense go on. Just to kind of talk about some of the defensive coaches on 2022.
Yep.
Of course, D'Amico, became coach for the Texans as a D coordinator. Chris Kuchek, like I said, the defensive line god. Former player Daryl Tapp, Johnny Holland, linebackers coach, Coy Unlin, pass game specialist, Daniel Bullock, safeties, who played in the league also, Nick Sorensen, defensive assistant. So I think, and maybe if we do this again, 4 or 5 years from now, more of those guys maybe become head coaches.
Will be head coaches. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
absolutely. Only time will tell.
Only time will tell.
But Marcus, thank you so much for coming on. And our next segment or next episode in the segment will be we're going to do the 89 defense versus the 94 defense. Might have to throw in the 03 defense. I mean, I will say the 03 defense was one of the best defenses the Niners ever assembled, but to be completely honest, it's probably going to be a quick exit for them just because of the fact that your overall record was 7-9.
7-9, yeah.
But
let's do it.
But we can still add them into the mix.
Yeah, let's do it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Geeked for it. Time for them to talk to you. Have a happy holidays, man, and hopefully, man, see more good things for Niners this mini camp and training camp, man.
Absolutely, looking forward to it. Happy 4th to you, Marcus.
Happy 4th.
Until next time.
All right,
Favorite Football Podcast. Sign it off.